My name is Stephanie Anderson, and I am the Everyday Learners Director at United Way of Utah County. And we are so excited. We are doing something a little bit different today. We have been doing our Ready to Learn workshops for the last 14 weeks and have had great success, and we have enjoyed having you, and we just know that we wanted to bring someone on that is a part of United Way. At United Way, we have 3 different initiatives. We have our Everyday Learners, which focuses on education. We have our Everyday Support, which helps people when they need anything, and we've been talking about that, our 211, any kind of support that you would need, you can call 211. And we have our Everyday Strong. And our Everyday Strong helps people in Utah County stay safe, connected, and confident. I always forget that last one. And so we really wanted to share with you what the message that they have, because it ties in so closely with what we do at Ready to Learn. In fact, some of their clips I've often thought, oh, that would fit perfect with some of our messaging that we want to do. We do know that when children are read to, that they do feel safe and they do feel connected, and it helps them feel more confident to have that person helping them along the way. And so we have Michael Ann Bradley with us today, and she is going to talk to you about Everyday Strong. You will still be getting a book in the mail, but we won't be reading any books today. And so I'm going to turn the time over to her to give you her message, and I will give you the keyword at the end of the workshop. And as in other times, you'll have until Friday to fill out the Google form, choose your book, and then we will get everything ready. So Michael Ann, we're really glad to have you today, and I'm just going to let you take over and give us your presentation.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm really excited about this. This is something that I'm personally really passionate about, because mental health is something that affects all of us so deeply, and especially with you out in the audience, I think a lot of you have young kids. It's a really awesome time to start thinking now about how you can build their resilience as they get to be teenagers, and we start seeing this becoming more and more of an issue. And the main thing I want to teach you today, the thing that I think is really cool about our program, is I want to encourage you that you can actually do more than you think you can. A lot of times we look at mental health, we feel really stressed about it. We start thinking, oh, we need experts, we need therapists, we need all these outside people to come in and help fix our child. But a lot of the research shows that the biggest difference between a child who overcomes trauma, overcomes difficult situations, and a child who doesn't, is having a resilient relationship or a responsive relationship with at least one caring adult. So, I think that all those other extra supports like therapy and school and so forth can be really, really beneficial, but at the end of the day, it's their relationship with you and how they feel supported by you that makes the difference in them overcoming their hard times. And this is actually really important, because we're going to talk a lot today about what that looks like and how you can be that caring adult in a child's life. A little bit of data first, though, to kind of ground us in this situation, in this conversation. If you've been following the news at all, you definitely know that mental health is on the rise among preteens and teenagers. It's a huge concern. Here's some data we look at sometimes. So this comes from, they call it the SHARP survey. Middle schoolers and high schoolers take it. It asks them about drug use, suicidal ideation, neighborhood attachment. I like this question. It asks middle schoolers and high schoolers, if you can see this, during the past 12 months, did you feel so sad or hopeless for 2 weeks or more that you stopped doing some of your usual activities? This is indicative that child probably has clinical depression. In 2011, we had about 14% of middle schoolers and high schoolers saying yes. That number has pretty much doubled in 2019 to 28%. This is for the whole state of Utah. It's a little lower in Utah County. Trend is the same. The good news, though, for those of you who have young kids, those numbers actually stayed pretty stable the last couple years. So it was rising really quickly, but these last couple years it stayed stable. That means the interventions that we're doing are helping. And so hopefully for your kids, they'll be in a better situation. But regardless, this trend is still really concerning, right? And the first thing whenever I start showing people this data, or we start talking about mental health, and whether that's like, children having meltdowns, or like, if you have 8-year-olds or whoever it might be, we start sort of wanting to know what's the reason, what's the cause, why is this happening to our kids? And I'm guessing, based on if you're like other people that I've talked to, one of your first concerns might be cell phones. You might be thinking about, how are cell phones affecting teenagers' health? Do I need to be thinking about cell phones for my kid at a future date? Like, how is that affecting it? You may have also heard the altitude theory. This is the idea that because we live at a higher altitude, we don't get oxygen as much as people at lower altitudes, which affects our ability to use serotonin in our bodies. You might have also heard that there's just a lot more pressure in our society with schools and things like that, and you might be worrying a lot about what's going to happen to my child as they get older. Are these pressures going to cause them to be anxious or depressed? You might start spinning all these theories. I've heard, GMO foods. If you give your child, the wrong kind of food at a young age, it can trigger depression later. Or, microwave radiation. Or there's all these theories. And I think all these theories probably have some truth to them. They probably all have some inadequacies as well, but for the most part, I think a lot of them, there's something to it. We should probably be talking about cell phones. Altitude might play a role, but I want to take a step back for a second from this question and this anxiety around causes and what is the cause of our kids being so anxious and depressed. And I want to give you a metaphor. So let's imagine that you have a friend who is running a marathon. And they come to you and they say, I'm trying to run this marathon, but I'm getting stuck at mile 8. I can't, I'm failing. I can't run this marathon, I'm getting stuck. And they ask you for advice. And depending on your own personal experience with running, or like an article you read that morning on Facebook, or just any of those kinds of things, you might have a few different answers for them. You might say, I think that your problem is biological. You don't know how to stretch, you need to lose some weight. You just don't have the genetics. You're just genetically incapable of ever running a marathon. Or you might say, oh, I think your problem's psychological. Running a marathon is as mentally taxing as it is physically taxing. You really need to learn how to have the good psychology ready to go to run this marathon. Or you might say it's spiritual. You might say, in my experience, if I can really tap into my higher power, then I really feel like I can get through things that are difficult in my life. Or you might say that it's social. If you would run with friends, or if you had friends there to help you cross the finish line, then you would be more successful. Or you might say it's educational. No one's really taught you how to run a marathon, or taught you about physiology, or you haven't thought about how to plan out your course, or any of these kinds of learning things. Or you might say it's environmental. It was too hot that day, it was too cold, you were wearing the wrong clothing. It could be any of these things, right? So here's the question that I have for you, I want you to think about for a second. Which of these, out of these 6 things, which of these is the cause of why someone fails at running a marathon? I'll give you a second to think about that. Here's the thing. If you look at them, it's kind of hard to pin down just one. It's kind of hard to say, well, no, it's always biological. If someone can't run a marathon, it's always just because of their biology. But it's really hard to say, well, it's just educational. If we could just teach more people how to run a marathon, then they could do it. Because what if they just don't have, the right biology to do it? But it can't just be environmental, and it can't just be social. This is what actually they call, in social sciences, they call multifactorial. This is when an issue is affected by more than one thing, and even these issues affect each other. Think about how the psychology affects the socialness. Think about how your education and your knowledge affects your psychology. Think about how even there's a new field of study called epigenetics, which is actually where certain genes that you have can get turned on by your environment. And it probably also depends on the individual person, right? So for someone like me, I have asthma. It's going to play a huge role in my ability to successfully run a marathon. For someone else who's just naturally very fit but has never learned how, they probably need more education. So it's multifactorial. It depends on the person. And we can't always know up front what the cause is. So I want you to think now, if instead of being marathon running, what if it's anxiety or depression? Or let's sub in anxiety and depression for a child having a tantrum, or your child just being anxious about going to sleep at night, or having a toddler who is just a little socially grumpy, right? Doesn't like other kids. It's really, really hard then to say, well, we just need to teach this 2-year-old, right, how to get along better with kids. It's probably going to need more than just that. It's really hard to say, my 5-year-old is really anxious, and it's probably just his diet. If I could just fix my 5-year-old's diet, then he would stop being anxious. It's probably going to be more than one of these things, and they're probably going to affect each other, and it probably depends on the child, right? So I think part of the reason, though, why we go seeking after sort of the one true cause, whether that's cell phones and teen depression, or diet and 3-year-old behavior, we go looking for these things because we want to be helpful. And we think if we can only find the answer, if we can only find the cause, then we can fix it. We can fix the problem. But hopefully I've just established that sometimes it's really hard to know what the cause is. It's sometimes really, really hard to know what to do to help. And so what I want to teach you today, even if you don't know what the cause is, even if you can't identify it, you can still be helpful by focusing on what it is that a child needs. And what is it that I mean by needs? So this is a diagram of something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You may have learned this in Psychology 101 in high school or in college. If you don't remember, or if you've never learned it, let me explain what it is. So Maslow was a therapist, a psychologist in the 30s who said that human beings have needs. And when their needs are met, then they thrive. And when their needs aren't met, then they don't thrive. Seems pretty straightforward, I guess. Let's walk you through that, what some of the implications of that are. So, physical needs. I think we all feel pretty confident that physical needs are an important piece of people thriving. This is why we provide free school lunch for kids, is because we know the kids who are hungry probably can't make very good grades. We see this a lot with babies, right? Everyone's had that experience with a baby who's just crying and crying and crying. And we know those babies, they're not crying because they're bad babies, right? Or because they want to just make our lives hard. They're crying because they need something, because there's some unmet need. And it's often a physical need. However, there's something that I had never considered until we started teaching EveryDay Strong, which is that all human beings, babies, toddlers, preteens, even adults, they have other needs beyond just physical needs. And they're just as real and just as essential as those physical needs. And for our purposes, we're going to call them safety, connection, and confidence. And let me walk you through kind of what we mean by that. Safety. I want you to think about someone who you just feel really relaxed with. You just feel totally you can just be yourself. You can just be goofy, and you can say whatever weird political opinions that you have, and you can mess up, and it just doesn't matter. You just know they'll always love you, no matter what. That feeling that you have with them, that's a feeling of safety. And I'm hoping that with the free book that you get, we can also mail you some copies of our Resilience Handbook. And in that handbook, we will give you more specifics on how you can actually intentionally build safety in people. This is geared a little bit towards older kids, but with a little bit of creativity, I think you can think about how to do this for young kids. With babies especially, this is where, if you ever heard about for example, attachment theory, your baby knowing that if they cry, you will respond to that cry, that's a feeling of safety that you're building in your baby from a very, very young age, right? Or if you help soothe a child when they're having a meltdown, and you don't try to like tell them like, no, like big kids don't cry, and you don't try to sort of squash their feelings. When you allow them to have the full range of emotions, you're building safety. You're building a foundation for good mental health later. The next need is connection. And connection is really, really important for everybody. We know this, right? We know that friendship and love and belonging is so, so great for kids to be able to experience. Connection, they talk about this actually in the literature as like if you've got that brand new baby. Do you remember like when you had a newborn and they call it that blissful gaze, right? I've got a niece living with me. Well, I live with her, I guess. It's her house. I live with this niece, right? And sometimes when I come home after work, she's 4 months old now, I'll just hold her like this and we'll just look into each other's eyes. And that connection, that moment of I see you and you see me, that's a feeling of connection. And that connection is what builds, what builds resilience. And as kids get older, that feeling of connection changes, right? It becomes like playtime with your toddler down on the floor. Or with a teenager, it looks like going out to a movie or getting an ice cream cone. Or with your spouse, it looks like enjoying a board game together or laughing together. Any of those kinds of things you can do to build connection is helping to meet their needs. And the final one that we talk about is confidence. Now, another word for confidence is competence. And sometimes people get a little confused because confidence kind of sounds like safety, like you think about someone like feeling brave, feeling strong. What we mean more here is like the ability to learn things and to like grow, that kind of thing. What I see happening a lot is people want to jump to like skill building and teaching before someone's physical needs, safety, and connection are met. So I want you to think, for example, if you ever had a toddler who's having a meltdown, that is not a teaching moment. That's not a time when you're like, hey, we're gonna learn right now how to like use our words and not our hands, right? All you can do in that moment is you can just help them regulate, right? You hold them, you help them calm down, you help them stop crying, you help them feel safe, maybe do a little fun activity. Once you've done those things, then you can teach them something, right? You can teach them competence, you can help them learn emotional regulation. But I just want you to keep in mind, I see a lot of people trying to jump to there before they've met the other needs that come first. So, that is actually pretty much everything I want to teach you. I've got a few more things though that'll help us like know how we can actually apply this. But that's the bulk of it. That's the meat of what I have to say. But I'm sure, I kind of explained the theory of this. The question is probably now, like what does this look like in real life, right? I'm going to share an example with you. I want you to think not so much about like what could be wrong with my kid, or how do I fix my kid, or how can my kid be different, but how can you meet their needs, right? How can you as the adult help them feel safe, feel connected, and feel confident? Because the theory, according to Maslow, is that when someone's needs are met, then they thrive. And when their needs aren't met, then they don't thrive, right? And so if you have a kid who's having behavior problems, if that's a toddler who is biting or hitting, if that is a baby who's crying and fussing, they are using that behavior to communicate something. And they're using that behavior to try to help you understand how you can be helpful. So obviously there's a lot we could go into here with this, but you might start thinking with a toddler who's causing difficulty, rather than like, how do I sort of get this toddler sorry, I'm gonna check really quick. How do I get this toddler to stop doing this behavior? How do I sort of like use like, bribes or punishments to get them to stop doing this behavior? Can I stop and think, what could be going on beneath the surface? What could I be doing to help this toddler feel safer with me, to connect with them more? A lot of times you see this, for example, when you like bring a new baby home for the first time and you have an older kid. You'll see that toddler start to act out more, right? To start just doing weird stuff like biting, or throwing things, or just having more meltdowns. And it's often because the parents, by necessity, are spending more time with the baby, right? And like you have to. You don't have a choice. That's just the nature of babies. But a lot of parents I talk to say they see those issues resolve when they just take a little more time to get down on the floor with that toddler, so the toddler feels like their connection needs are being met more. So that's what I mean about trusting that they will thrive. Is trusting that kids are doing the best that they can. So, I'll give you another kind of concrete example. Let's imagine that we know a little girl named May. She's a kindergartner who has been showing low frustration tolerance. She's even been showing some aggression. She threw a ball at a peer's face, and she threw a pen at her teacher. So if you've got a situation like this, and you can sub in any situation that you have, I want you to always do one of two things. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to, we call it shifting your lens. I want you to stop thinking about like, okay, May is just like a bad kid, or May just is like a troublemaker, or May just like is making my life hard on this already busy day, right? Or even that May would do better if she would just try harder. If May would just try harder, then she wouldn't be a bad little kid. I want you to kind of let go of that for a second, and I want you to think through using that pyramid as like kind of like your lens. What would happen if instead of thinking about what May needs to do differently, what would happen if I thought about what can I as the adult do differently? And start thinking, okay, physical needs, safety, connection, confidence. I won't spend too much time delineating what each of those things could be for May. But, you know, for example, can you get May a snack? Can you help her take a quick nap if she's willing? What about safety? Rather than yelling, can you get down on her level? Can you physically make yourself smaller so that May feels safer with you? What about connection? Can you spend some time now or later doing something that she just really likes doing as a way to help her feel more connected? And then confidence or competence, can you teach her some skills? May, we don't throw balls when we're angry, we use our words, right? Things like that. So again, this is not about how do you diagnose, you know, oh, May has a safety problem, we need to fix her safety problem. It's about what can you do as a caring adult? And let's talk for a second about motivation. So sometimes, I was alluding to this briefly, we look at a kid like May. This happens a lot, especially with teenagers. I'm guessing a lot of you kind of know that kid in your life. Maybe it's your brother, maybe it's like an uncle, who's like that kid who kind of lives in the basement, right? Maybe it's your parents' basement, just like won't get a job. And we kind of look at that kid and we say, well, they're clearly just not trying, right? It's pretty easy for most of us to know that like a 5-year-old who's struggling probably doesn't have full control over their emotions. But for some reason, we really think that the older a person is, like, clearly they should have their life together, which is probably true to some extent. But I want to give you another metaphor to think about. I want you to imagine that you're back in middle school, and it's PE class. And I don't know about you, but I was really bad at sports. I was not a sportsy kid. You're in PE class, and it's your turn to go up to the bat. And your PE teacher says, if you can hit this ball, then you'll pass the class. And if you can't hit it, then you'll fail. You have to redo the whole thing. So you're feeling like you really want to hit this ball. You really, really want to. And you step up to the plate, you step up, you get ready, and you go and you swing. I'm probably not even holding this baseball, right? That's how unsportsy I am, right? You swing, and you miss. You're pretty discouraged, right? You think, golly, I really wanted to hit that ball, but I just didn't. But it's okay, because you've got 2 more strikes until you're out. So then you're like, I don't know, your dad's there for some reason. And your dad is like, I've got this $100 bill. If you can hit this ball, then it's yours. And you're 13, so $100 is a lot, right? So you've got your grade on the line, you've got this money on the line. You step up to the plate, and you swing, and you miss. So then, like, all of your friends are there, and they start booing, and they're like, boo, like, if you don't hit that ball, we're all gonna throw baseballs at your legs, because we think you're such a loser, right? And so now you've got your grade, pass or fail on the line, you've got the money, and you've got your friend's admiration on the line. You've never wanted anything in your whole life as much as you want to hit this ball. And you step up to the plate, and you swing, and you miss. So the question, right, is did you not hit that ball because you were lazy? Or did you not hit the ball because you just didn't care? No, of course not, right? Like, you wanted it with all of your heart, but you just didn't have the ability to do it. And honestly, all of that pressure, everyone's saying to you, like, come on, like, I'm just gonna try to motivate you to do this, just to motivate you to try harder, probably kind of backfired. Because next time you have this opportunity, you're just gonna say, no, I'm not gonna try. Like, I've tried before, and it doesn't work, you know? It's not really about motivation here. And I would posit that a lot of times, it's really not about motivation, hardly ever. It's often about our abilities and whether or not our needs are met. Whether that's, again, a baby, a toddler, an adult. Are your needs met? When your needs are met, then you're more likely to thrive. Emily's going to go ahead and bring up the video closer, or the camera, so you can watch this video. This video is going to kind of summarize everything I've just talked to you about, and we'll go ahead and play it.
Kids who are hungry for safety, connection, and confidence every day, like, they're not their best selves.
I felt left out.
I didn't feel self-worth, really.
I think a good way to describe it would be like something kind of stuck in your throat and it's like slowly making its way up.
Like, I'm feeling it now because it's like kind of stuck, like you're in between something.
Or a cracked phone in a world full of nice phones. You're like, oh, what happened? And you don't know. It's just, I dropped it. I need help.
There's always a reason behind somebody's behavior.
Many children are struggling more than they used to with anxiety and depression.
What we're discovering is that some of the solutions may actually be simple acts in our everyday life
That help a child feel safe, feel connected, and feel confident. The simple premise is everyday strong.
Who could they be if they did have those things? They would be the best version of themselves, right? Because when you feel good, you self-actualize. That's kind of a crazy big word. I don't know where that just came from. But it's that idea that they do what you would want them to do or what they can do because they can.
Most people, I think, feel sad because they're not understood.
It's not doing harsh discipline, it's having consistent communication.
Just talking and feeling that no one's gonna laugh at them, no one's gonna think that they're weird.
Oh, I'm okay, and this is normal, and this does happen to other people.
And look for them for opportunities to engage them, to say, wow, job well done, help build their confidence in who they are.
Something that they know is a fact. Today I was good at that one thing and somebody noticed.
Then suddenly the tree starts to thrive again because they're not in their little dark room alone.
They feel like, okay, I've got people around me, I've got some help, I'm gonna be okay. It was fun to see that transformation, and it took a long time, but I knew that she was a different person the day she said hi to me before I even saw her. I got tears in my eyes.
You know, you take these little opportunities and you find out how big they are. I look into their faces and I know their struggles and I know what they're fighting for, and to see that light click on in them is absolutely priceless.
If all of us ask ourselves, what did we do today to help that child feel safe? What did we do to help that child feel connected? What did we do to help that child feel confident?
I feel like that's the easiest, shortest to-do list, and it's fail-proof.
If we use that as a measurement of our lives of interacting with so many of our children and young adults, we really can turn the corner on this very complex and challenging problem.
You can help them help themselves, which is what we want our kids to be able to do.
Everybody has a role to play. Okay, what can I do?
there's a line in that video that I really love when Amy says, "This is the easiest, shortest to-do list." I'm sure already, as a parent, you're already thinking to yourself, like, okay, this baby's a newborn, I have to like figure out how to get them to like eat solid foods and sleep through the night, and like when they grow up, I have to figure out how to teach them math and get them to college and like make friends, and like it's just like you're already feeling that overwhelm, right? If there's so many things to do, and then you add on mental health on top of that, and what you need to be doing as a parent to care for their mental health. And what I love about EveryDay Strong, what I love about this pyramid, is that all I want you to do, I just want you to think, okay, what have I done today to help my child feel safe with me, to feel relaxed, at ease, comfortable? What have I done to connect with them? What have I done to build their confidence or to teach them new skills? And if you do that every day, if you ask yourself, what can I do to help my child feel these things? When you meet their needs, then you're building resilient kids. This was said by a child psychiatrist who works in our community here in Provo. That is everything I have for you today. I would really invite you and encourage you to follow us on social media. And this is not actually because I want more followers. I get nothing out of having more followers, but this is because I want you to be able to get some reminders. So I'm going to guess that a quick little half an hour spiel about mental health is probably nice, but it may not stick for very long. If you follow us on social media, we're posting a few times a week reminders and very specific actions of how you can build safety, connection, confidence in your kids. So I'd actually invite you, you may already be on your phone, but go right now to our page, if you don't have to move away from this one, and find us either on Facebook or on Instagram and start following us right now. That'll help you a lot to have those reminders to start getting this under your skin. I've probably heard this presentation or given it 200 times at this point, and I still have to really work to shift my lens, right, from seeing people as maybe like a little bit lazy, not really trying hard, to what can I do to support their needs. And like I said, we will also send you, along with your book, we'll send you a handbook that will give you some more concrete actions of what you can actually do under safety, connection, and confidence that will help you apply this more. Thank you so much for tuning in.
It's always been fun to work with Michael Ann. I think we've worked with each other for 8 years. And it's really been exciting to see this movement in Utah County. And if you are in the Alpine School District or the Nebo School District or Provo School District, our teachers are being trained on this to help children in our classrooms feel safe, connected, and confident. And I just think that if a child, as we've talked about in many of our classes, have those things, and as Michael Ann said, when you have a newborn, we're so concerned about what we can do to help them, but if you remember from our class what to do with Imagine-Feel, the foundation of mental wellness is touch, and so holding that child and making them feel safe. So as Michael Ann was talking, I'm going to have to put this up on my phone, is that in a book that it's called What Do You Do With a Kid Like This? It talks about children that, so what do we do? And this author, his name is Tobin, he actually talks so much about what Michael Ann was saying, is that we sometimes want to know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And most of the time, it's not the child is trying to be naughty. A child is not trying to make your life miserable, but they have a need that's not being fulfilled. And so in another class that I teach, we talk about what are those needs and how can you sometimes look at them. So I'm just going to read a couple of them that I think is very interesting. So a child that needs acknowledgement is going to pester you, or pester the sister, or pester the dog, but they want to be acknowledged. Another thing that child what he'll do if he does that pestering does not get resolved, or you start to just stop everything like Michael Ann said, and like, what can we do today? What can I do to help you feel safe? Then they're going to start to withdraw, and then as that need becomes more and more unfulfilled, then they're going to start to rebel. And it goes in sometimes those stages. I'm just going to do one more. For communication, and this is a lot like acknowledgement, they annoy you and then they appear distracted. They just won't even do anything, and then they're going to act out. For touch, they're going to touch everything excessively. Isn't that interesting? Now, by the way, if you have a child that has their temperament is sensory and they touch everything, that might be part of that. And then they're going to provoke fighting, and then they're going to fear touch. Isn't that interesting of the progression that are almost the need that's still there? Like Michael Ann said, as a teenager, if they not been touched and then they're fighting and getting in trouble for it, then fearing touch will be what's expressed as a young adult or an adult. And so it's interesting that as a child and a teenager, if we can find that and find what that need is, and you know what, most of the time it's not going to be a doctor or a specialist. It is going to be you, because you know your child best. And so you take what you know, get some help, but you become empowered as a parent. So our word today is resilient. And remember, when you're filling out the form, that you're a resilient parent by coming. I just am so impressed when we look at how many people have come, but the same people that have followed us and shared this, that shows me that you are a resilient parent because you want to do better, and maybe you want a free book and you get that free book, but you also make some great comments. We really, really do like the comments, and it really makes us want to do this more. So remember, the word is resilient. You have until Friday to fill out the form. You'll get a book that has the theme of safety, connection, and confidence, and you will get the guide for the Everyday Strong, which is really neat. It has little things that you can do, games that you can play that are really simple. And once again, I bet when you look at it, you're going, I do this already, and then it helps you get to that next step. Thank you for joining us, and next week we'll be doing a science on science and STEM. So we're excited to share some new workshops with you. And so on Thursday, we will end our story time with, my mind just went blank, about our different diversity books. That's it. So we're going to be doing our diversity books on Thursday, and then you'll have until Friday to fill out your form. Thanks for coming today.